Every forest has a name. The one near my hometown is called the Deaf Forest. People say it isn't just a place where trees grow, it's a place under a curse. The locals have stories, whispers passed down through generations, that time doesn't flow correctly within its boundaries. They believe that things left behind in the woods, abandoned objects, start to develop a will of their own. The legends go way back to the 17th century, claiming dark rituals were performed among these trees. They say the strange dolls sometimes found here are more than just toys. They're physical vessels for souls trapped long ago. There's one rule everyone knows. Never, ever take anything you find in the Deaf Forest. If you do, it will eventually come back for what it considers its own. And one day, that's exactly where my friend Andrew and I went. We were deep in the woods, filming for our channel, when we stumbled upon it. The cabin. It wasn't just old. It looked like it had been swallowed by the forest, fused with the trees around it. It felt wrong, like a Venus flytrap waiting for its next meal. The first thing that struck me as odd was the threshold. The ground everywhere was covered in a thick layer of wet moss and dark soil. Every step we took left a deep, clear footprint. But at the entrance to the cabin, nothing. Not a single mark. It was as if something was actively wiping the ground clean. This was the first unwritten rule we learned. The forest does not let you leave your mark here. Stepping inside, the air grew cold and still. And that's when we saw them. The collection. Seated around a single, rough-hewn wooden table were 7 porcelain dolls. Their faces were pale and smooth, but their eyes were disturbingly realistic, made of glass that seemed to follow our every move. It was creepy, sure, but we chalked it up to a strange local artist. Then I saw something that didn't belong. Lying on the table, next to the perfectly still dolls, was a child's glove. It looked new, recently dropped, but it was covered in a fine layer of what looked like porcelain powder. It wasn't a doll's glove. It was real. We decided to camp nearby, planning to capture the sunrise filtering through the ancient trees. We thought we were just observers. We were wrong. That night, I was jolted awake by Andrew. He grabbed my arm, his eyes wide with fear. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "Someone's in there. They're moving furniture." I held my breath and listened. He was right. A faint but unmistakable sound was coming from the cabin, the scraping of wood against wood. We grabbed our flashlights and crept back to the cabin, our hearts pounding in our chests. We pushed the door open, shining our beams inside. The scene had changed. The dolls were no longer sitting neatly at the table. One was now on the floor, its back propped against the wall as if it had been casually tossed there. And another one, the 5th one in the line, now had a thin, dark crack running down its cheek, like a single, permanent tear. This was our proof. The collection had started its game. We searched the cabin more carefully this time. Under the table, half hidden in the shadows, we found a small, leather-bound notebook. It was a diary. The diary of the last person who had stumbled upon this place. The handwriting was frantic, but what was truly strange was the ink. The last few entries were written in a vivid green, completely different from the faded black ink of the rest of the journal. On the very last page, a set of rules were scrawled. Rule 1, do not count them. Rule 2, do not touch them. Rule 3, never turn your back. Rule 4, watch out for the number 8. And then, underlined 3 times, most important, if you hear a knock on the wall, it means the 8th is close. A chill ran down my spine. I looked back at the table. The man wrote about 8 dolls. I counted again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There was an empty space, right between the 5th and 7th dolls. And then we heard it. A quiet, but sharp, knock. It came from the wall directly behind the table. Andrew panicked. "Why are there only 7? He wrote about 8, he stammered, backing away from the table. We swung our flashlights back to the collection. My blood ran cold. Now there were only 6. The doll with the tear, doll number 5, was gone. We rushed to the wall where the knocking had come from. Tucked into a crevice in the wood was another, much older piece of parchment. It was the diary of the doll maker himself. It contained 3 more rules, written in a shaky, archaic script. Do not call their names. Do not bring in light. Do not run. But it was too late. We had broken every single one. On the wall, next to the parchment, was a crude drawing. It was a stick figure doll with a gaping hole where its face should be. Suddenly, We heard a sound from the corner of the room. A fresh, cutting sound, like branches being snapped. We slowly turned our heads, our flashlight shaking. In the empty spot at the table, a new figure was sitting. The 8th doll. It was a horrifying effigy, woven together from sticks and dried leaves. Its face was a twisted knot of branches, wrapped in a torn piece of fabric. A piece of my grey jacket. In its twig-like hands, it clutched the small, porcelain head of the doll with the tear. And tied to one of its branch legs was the childesque glove we had found earlier. In that moment, the terrifying truth crashed down on me. The dolls weren't just objects. They were trophies. They were collecting people. The 8th doll slowly, mechanically, tilted its head, and its glass marble eyes fixed on me. In their reflection, I saw my own terrified face. And standing directly behind me, I saw the reflection of a tall, dark shadow. A shadow that was moving in perfect sync with the doll. I remembered the dollmaker's final rule, do not run. But I did. I bolted from the cabin. Behind me, I heard Andrew let out a desperate, piercing scream that was swallowed by the silence of the forest. I didn't stop. I just kept running, adrenaline pumping through my veins, the sounds of snapping twigs chasing me through the darkness. The deaf forest had accepted my challenge. I made it out, somehow. But the story doesn't end there. A week later, a small, unmarked package arrived at my door. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a single doll's arm, made of porcelain. It was still warm to the touch and smelled of damp earth and a faint, sweet perfume. And underneath it lay a brand new, clean notebook. I opened it to the first page. Written in my own handwriting, in that same vivid green ink from the victim's diary, was a single sentence. Rule 9. You know they are looking for you. Now you must find your replacement. I can feel it, even now. I feel the 8th doll watching me, knowing where I am. I look over at the empty space on my bookshelf, waiting to be filled. Because when you take something from the deaf forest, it always comes back to claim what's its. And this doll's arm, this is just the beginning. Thanks for watching. If you have stories like this, share them in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Stay safe out there.